Hello and welcome back to Mood India, California Arts Association's presentation of performing arts from India. I'm your host, Arvind Kansal. Continuing our series on Indian musical instruments, today we're going to talk about Sarod, an Indian string instrument. This is the second part of our two-part series on Sarod. In the studio we have Parag Chordia, and accompanying him on Tabla is Ferhan Qureshi. Parag has learned Sarod from Pandit Buddhadev Das Gupta of Semia Shahjahanpur lineage. Ferhan is learning Tabla from Ustad Tariq Khan of Punjab Gharana. Welcome again.
Good to be here.
In the first part, we talked about basic introduction to Sarod, what are the basic playing techniques, its place in Indian classical instruments. Today, can we talk about Sarod performance? What is the structure of a Sarod performance? What are the fixed and the improvisational parts?
Sure. I'll begin by giving a brief description of a Sarod performance, and indeed any instrumental performance follows this basic pattern which originated in Drupad music, both in terms of vocal Drupad music and music that the beankers played. And typically, in a full piece, you start with alap. Alap is an unmetered section. There's no explicit rhythmic pulse, and it's played without the accompaniment of tabla. And the basic idea, alap is very, very central in our music because it's where you see the purest vision of the rag. You see the essential melodic ideas, and the essential melodic beauty is brought out by very deliberate expansion of the basic phrases. So, for example, through these phrases, we bring out different aspects of the rag. The essential expression of rag is in the alap. After the alap proper, we introduce a pulse. This section is called jor. In this section, there's an overall pulse, you feel the beat, but there's no overarching rhythmic cycle.
Right.
So the difference between having a pulse and having a rhythmic cycle, we're going to see later, but it basically has to do with when you have a pulse, you have it regularly spaced, you can sort of clap along. When you have a rhythmic cycle, every so often, you say that one of those down claps is a structurally important point, and then we restart. So this is how the idea of a cycle gets introduced. Because you have a basic pulse, and then you assign certain beats prominence. So, for example, suppose we're playing like this. Now, suppose we go 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. We've taken a linear pattern and now made it circular by assigning this prominence to a certain position.
And assign it into a cyclic pattern then.
Well, yeah, and it becomes a cyclic pattern precisely because you're saying beats which are separated, say, by 4 beats are now connected in this sense.
Right.
After the jor, we play jhala, which is essentially just an acceleration. So jhala continues like this. Essentially, you're seeing a shift from the alap, where the emphasis is on these sort of subtle inflections, the subtle melodic grace, to the jor and jhala, where you have increasing emphasis on rhythmic play.
Right.
After the jhala, we introduce the compositions. So up till now it's been improvised, of course within the structure of rag, but extemporaneous. At this point we introduce a fixed composition. Usually we start with a slow composition. It can be set to any number of tals, although the vast majority of times it's set to 3 tal, which is a cycle of 16 beats. Other common tals are jap tal, 10 beats, rupak tal, 7 beats, 8 tal, 12 beats, Jumra tal, etc. Now, the key thing about the compositions that we play. The first one is called Masjid Khanigat, after its creator, Masjid Khan. And the key thing about it is that you hear a certain refrain, and we keep coming back to this refrain even when we do improvisations. The essence of what we do in the gut section, the gut kari, it revolves around playing this theme and then doing variations, elaborations of that theme. And the elaborations become freer and more rhythmically intense as we progress.
So you start from a kernel and then expand outwards.
Yeah, exactly. And that kernel is precisely the fixed composition. That gives us our basic material. It sort of defines the approach we're going to be taking to the rag initially. And then more and more free sections are introduced and interpolated in that fixed structure. So to give you an example, important part, you can say, of this composition is the refrain, which goes like this. The reason it's so important is because the first beat of the rhythmic cycle is the point of maximum release. You build tension within the cycle, approaching the sum, and then you release it on the sum. This phrase leading up to the sum therefore gives the audience an idea that we're coming around to the sum. They were coming to the point of resolution, so pay attention, in other words.
It increases the expectation.
Exactly. You're basically playing with the listener's expectation. So when you hear that mukra, you know that they're coming around to sum. It's a signal. And the return to the, sometimes you'll return directly to the sum, but very typically in the Vilambit section, you'll be playing your improvisations and then you'll return to the refrain. And that's a very beautiful, beautiful thing that's done in the Vilambit section, is returning to the mukra rather than immediately landing your improvisations on the sum. After the Vilambit section, we play a drut composition, which is distinguished by the fact that it's now set to a much faster tempo. And we'll continue again to do weave improvisations around that fixed composition.
That's it.
Always returning to the basic structure. So the part, what I've outlined you is a typical performance. Now, in a full-length rendition, that could range anywhere from, say, 30 minutes to an hour and a half. So there's a huge range, even when you're presenting full section. But then, as per the needs of the performer and the audience, you can abridge certain sections, you can omit certain sections. Sometimes you'll start immediately with the gut. Sometimes you'll only play ala proper but no jor and jala. That's a very common thing, where you'll play ala proper and then you'll go into your composition. Sometimes you'll play only the fast composition. So within that framework, you have tremendous flexibility in the overall form.
There's a lot of leeway there.
Yeah, I mean, depending on how you want. And some rags are more conducive to full-length renditions. Some rags are more microscopic in the sense that they're miniatures, and you want to sort of bring out their beauty in a quick way rather than an expansive elaboration.
So we're going to talk about a bigger piece.
So what I'm going to be playing now is rag Naiki Kanra. Naiki Kanra is a rag played around midnight, and it's a specialty of my guru Pandit Buddhadev Das Gupta, and it's one of the first Kanra rags, predating the more famous Darbari Kanra and Koshi Kanra.
I see. series on Sarod, an Indian string instrument. Mood India's presentation on Indian musical instruments is a production of California Arts Association. We welcome your feedback and comments and hope to see you here again next time. Until then, namaskar.